Now we're going to look at an expenses sheet, and in spreadsheet solving they call it "Where does my money go?" And we look here, and what you do is for each expense that you have the date, the amount, and then a category. For instance, rent, healthcare, entertainment, food, gas, travel, education. And then you can have notes here, but the notes don't really matter. It's really the categories. So you're trying to figure out, in a given time period, what percent of things do you spend in a given category? And that will help you. For example, if you see that 50% of your budget is going to entertainment, then you would probably say, probably should spend more on food and rent and a little bit less on entertainment, particularly if you're having trouble saving any money. So let's see, what do you do to find everything in education? So that is our SUMIF command. So we're going to write that in as a SUMIF, okay, and we're going to say if, and I guess that we would look at column C, so we can do $C colon $C. And then what are we going to look for? Well, let's look for what's in F3, what's across from us. We'll look for what's in education. And actually, we don't need quotes on that, so we'll say whatever's in F3. And it'll always be in the F column, so we can do $F3, but we want the column to change because after that, we're going to look at entertainment, food, etc. So if we find an F3, then we're going to add up what's in B. So say $B colon $B. Let's see if that works. Well, it won't work, of course. We have to put an equal sign in front, but I don't put the equal sign because it kind of gets smaller when I do that. So we say the equal sign, we put it in, and we get $290. So we spent $290 on education. Let's see if that seems plausible here. So there's an education for 74, and then another education down here for 216. Yeah, so 290 seems okay. So we like that. Okay, so you notice, even though I've done this a long time, I still check to see if my answer was okay. So let's go back and see what we did. We said, let's look in column C for what we find here. So education, if we find it, add up. So we found two educations, 74, 214, we added them up. So we like that. So now we get that plus sign, and we're going to drag that down all the way. Okay. Okay, so we've got all our things, and you see that as, for most people, the biggest expense is rent. Okay. Now, how are we going to do the title? The total. So for the total, we're going to say, okay, so I won't put the equal sign in yet. So we're going to do the sum of what? So we want to put in the sum from, so we'll look at this guy, and we're going to go all the way down to rent. So we're going to do that sum. So that is from G3 to G9. Okay, so we'll go in there and we'll say we want to sum up G3 to G9. Okay, so we'll need our equal sign in front of it. Let's put our equal sign there. Okay, and so you say, well, what happened? I went over to the other next cell, so I'll put it up here, equals G3, G9. Okay, so we get our sum. How much did everything cost? Now, what do we want if we want the total excluding rent? Okay, so we want this, but we're going to take out the 2100 because a lot of times you want to look at what do I spend except for the rent. Okay, so we're going to pull this down and then we'll edit it. So it's okay. We went down here and we say it got G4 to G10, but what we really want is we want from G3 education down to G8 other. Okay, so we go in there and we say, no, it's not G4, it's G3 and it's G8. Okay, so we add that in. And now we get a smaller number, 2100 less. Now here's an interesting thing for the period ending. So we say, okay, equals, so I'll leave the equal sign out so you can see it. So we're going to put in max, let me do it in caps, the max of whatever's in A. So we can do A colon A. Okay, and let's put an equal sign in front of that and see what we get. So we get 315, and let's see if that makes sense. Yep, there it is. That's the last date, 315. So you can use maximum with dates. Okay, so next, what percent is this of the total? And so you can get that by dividing this cell's value, 290, by the total, 3. So we'll just say equals, and what's our, so I'll do it without the equal sign first. So it's G3 divided by, I guess I'll do dollar, so it's going to stay in G. Is it going to stay in G? I guess so. G3 divided by, and down here it is, see what that is. It is G11. So we have G3 divided by G11, and it's always that. So we're going to do $G, $11, and we'll add our equal sign in front of it, and we get 0.07%. Okay, but that's not a percent. Okay, so we divide one thing by the other and we get 0.07. So that's that famous decimal you heard about when you're doing percents. And so what do we do to change it? Well, just go to Format and we say Format number as a percent. And lo and behold, it changes to 7%. Okay. So we can pull that formula down. We pull it all the way down, percent of total. And you can see very nicely that the rent is 50% of your budget for the month. And that's very common nowadays. People pay way too much for rent. Okay, so let's add those all up. And so we'll just say equals the sum. So we're going to do that sum equals the sum. And let's just say what we sum up these guys. And it should be right around 100%. Okay, so that didn't work, did it? So let's take a look again and see what happens. And you can see we left out the rent. So instead of H8, we want to go all the way to H9. So we go to H9, and then we get our 100%. Now, let's look at percent of total excluding rent. Okay, so instead of, if we look at our formula here, we did G3, okay, the 290, and we put it into G11, but now we want to go into G12. Okay, so let's copy it over. So we get our plus sign, we copy it over. Okay, and we get to 7 point, but we're going to edit it a little bit. So we're going to say, okay, yeah, we want to divide G3, but we want to divide it by what's in G12, that smaller number. Okay, and now it's a much larger, right? So education is out of your non-rent. So a lot of people would call that your discretionary, that what you can use at your discretion, not you're forced to pay rent, right? You don't want to live on the street, but of the money that you have a choice, it's education is 16%. So now let's pull that down, okay, but we don't pull it all the way down to rent. Okay, and you can think about why you don't do anything here. So we'll just put some dashes here because we don't care about that one. Okay. And now we're going to do a sum. So do the same thing, so it equals the sum of, well, let's see, this is I. So we're going to sum these up. And we hit return. There's our 100%. Okay, so go ahead and take the spreadsheet that I've shared with you and try and create this table that has this. You might also try and create a pie chart from this, so you could definitely create a pie chart from it, and you'll see that it was done, charts 1 and 2. So you could try and create a pie chart from this to see what percents you were spending. But give this a try, and then if you'd like to go to the next level, create your own categories. See if you can figure that out. It has to do with what you see down here, the data validation. We'll learn more about that in future lessons. But for now, just see if you can use those SUMIF commands to do this. So you're saying, I want these categories, so I look for them, I add up what is in these categories, okay? And then you do that formatting to get the percents rather than the decimals. Okay, so 5th and 6th graders, you've worked on that quite a bit.